Hey everyone, welcome to the Mizrahi Perspective. Big demonstrations in Israel and some demonstrations in the US as well, led by AOC and Bernie Sanders, of all people. I want to talk about this because I want to make it very clear to everyone who's watching and everyone who's following. And there are many new people joining this channel and watching this, so welcome. I'm so happy to see all of you and read all your comments, so thank you and welcome. I want to make it very clear to all of us how liberalism and liberals brought us where we are, because this is what happened. I don't blame Trump and Trump voters for where we are, as I mostly don't blame Israeli right-wingers for the situation in Israel. I blame mostly liberals, and I'm going to explain why and what is the liberal political identity and how it brought us here, how it brought us where we are. But before I touch that, I wanna briefly talk about something else, because yesterday evening I wrote one sentence on my Twitter account. I'm going to post the link below. And I said, we have never seen China drop one bomb on one building anywhere in our lifetime. And we have never seen China bomb countries. And I'm saying this, of course, I'm saying this about China, but I'm talking about the US and the countries and forces it supports, because the US itself and all the countries it supports, especially a certain one in the Middle East, are always at war, always bombing people, always destroying, always invading. The US is always at war, always bombing someone every minute of every day for years and years. This has become just a steady presence in our life, the current American war. And now, fresh from they are bombing in Yemen, but they are planning for a war on Iran. And who knows what's next? I mean, next they may decide they want to bomb Spain and they want to invade, I don't know who. They have to fight, they have to bomb. So this one sentence that I wrote, and of course it was provocative. I knew the kind of response it's going to get. It's almost a kind of game, because I know what people are going to say about almost anything. And I think this is most of us. We have been exposed for so long to the variety, the available variety of opinions. We can anticipate with very high certainty how people are going to react to almost any subject we bring up, and the tone we use, and all of this. This is why, by the way, the only interesting conversation is an open and sincere conversation, because everything else is known in advance, and it is so boring. I'm so bored by this. But I posted this sentence, which is meant to demonstrate the stark contrast between the American style of doing things and the Chinese style of doing things. And this morning, when I woke up, and all throughout the day, there were more and more comments of people saying, but Tibet, but Vietnam, because China was at war with Vietnam for 1 month in 1979. So the Uyghurs, and Tibet, and the Uyghurs, and the Falun Gong, and all these CIA code names, all the things American patriots come back with to demonstrate that China is evil. And all of this is automatic. It's almost AI. Most of it was real people. But it felt like AI because this falls under the umbrella of what I referred to earlier about people responding automatically and you can anticipate it, how they will respond, and how angry or derisive or any approach they're going to take, you're going to be able, you'll be able to anticipate it in advance. But when people reacted like this, I realized this opens a discussion about something that's really interesting. And everything connects together. And by the way, I'm preparing my big World War video. I think I'm going to be able to upload it tomorrow, to post it tomorrow. But if not, the day after, I'm going to connect all the dots, where we are, who is fighting over what, and what do those sides represent. So this is going to be interesting, and it may be ready tomorrow, the day after, so stay tuned. And anyway, when people reacted like this, with this kind of patriotic anger, automatic, okay? This is, I immediately saw how this kind of reaction, this kind of automatic reaction to strangeness is what this is really about, okay? Because this is what white people, white colonizer societies program people to be like, to act like. We are conditioned to identify whiteness with normalcy and goodness, and non-whiteness with danger, dirt, mystery, exotic existence, savagery. So every time someone who's not white is mentioned, is brought up in any conversation, almost in any context, they are going to always be presented as not the standard, something strange and dangerous. So the minute you speak about China, like a normal country with normal people, which is what it is, all countries are. Well, that's a big statement, but you know what I mean. The white colonizer instinct, the white supremacist instinct is to push against this, to push back, to mark the strangeness and the danger that those people represent. So if you're going to talk about China, if you're going to talk about Africa, if you're going to talk about Muslims, if you're going to talk whatever you talk about, black people, of course, any group that you talk about that is not white is going to attract this kind of reaction. And I saw the same things when it's the same reality with Mizrahi Jews in the Zionist in Israel, in the Zionist like sphere of derangement. It's the same thing. I mean, the white Zionist Ashkenazi. This is type 0. This is neutral reality. Everyone else is a little bit off, a little bit strange. And we all have this instinct. I mean, white people and non-white people, and women probably even more, because masculinity is always like this is the human being. The white man, when we talk about anyone in any circumstance, we are taught to see a white man in this situation, driving, eating, shopping. This is the example we have in our mind, and this has been put in our heads, right? It's been pushed into our consciousness. So every time you talk about another country, another culture, okay, black or brown or Asian. The reaction from the white colonizer audience is going to be some kind of framing of strangeness and otherness. So we can't have a discussion about China as being equal to the US, meaning they operate in the same reality, and they may take different directions, but they are not different species, they are the same animal, which is all of us. There's always going to be pushback against this. We have to say that China is dangerous and ominous, and people said to me, they don't bomb people, but they kill people in quiet. They created COVID and released it upon the. Why would they create COVID and unleash it on their own society, on the rest of the world? I mean, China is doing fine. It wants the world to work. Why would China want the rest of the world to stop buying its stuff for a year or two? I mean, why? And in China, with all that stuff that it has and develops, the quantum computers, all the crazy stuff, the robots, all the AI, everything that they develop, they can't do something that will only hurt the US or Europe or the country they want to hurt. They have to be also hurt by it. I mean, why? But my point is, we always have to ascribe some form of dangerous otherness to non-white people and societies. This is what we are conditioned to always do. So every time you're going to mention, or me or anyone, are going to mention China or a country in Africa doing something right, there's going to be like an autocorrect, a racial autocorrect, that's going to tell you, no, they are dangerous people, they are dirty people, they don't have our morality, they don't have our values, they are not as fine as us, they are not as... And white people are a small minority of humanity. So how can they be the norm and the standard, and all the billions of people who are not white are the aberration, the non-standard or substandard people. And I think that many Americans are having difficulty with this. This is the main difficulty they have with China. They cannot accept that a non-white country is similar to theirs, and it's basically potentially the same thing, and maybe even better in some respects, which China is, definitely. It is not bombing half the world. It is building infrastructure. It is helping and improving people's lives. And it is psychologically, it's very hard to get. For people who have grown up in a white colonizer mentality, white supremacist mentality, it is almost impossible to see non-white people as your equal, as your moral and normative and psychological and emotional and physical equal. And it is so hard for white supremacist societies to cope with this. But it's their problem. It's not for us to solve it for them. They need to do that themselves, and they will have to. They will have to, because in a year or 2 or 5, it's going to be so clear that China is far ahead of the US in many ways. In many ways. And not only the US, also countries in Europe. China is taking the lead. And people are going to have to come to terms with this, that everything that they believed in, because white supremacy is so ingrained in culture, And it is present in so many things. I mean, it is the underlying logic of Western society. Everything about Western society, especially American society, is built upon white supremacy to sustain and augment it. I mean, everything, every subject you touch, every single thing. The urban planning and the infrastructure, education, medicine, military service, how do they call it? The rights of states, everything, the weapons in the hands of civilians, freedom of speech and what is allowed to be said and what not, and the economy, and everything is built around white supremacy. Every single thing. It's the same thing in Zionism, exactly the same thing. Zionism is a movement designed for white Jews to make them richer and have better reputation. This is Zionism. It's not for Jews who look and sound like me, or other Arab Jews, or dark-skinned Jews. Anyway, that's that. It's just a comment about this reflex, okay? This reaction, this automatic reaction to mark the territory of the known and comforting world, which is the limit of whiteness. And when you cross the limit of whiteness, it's as if you're walking into a very scary forest of foreign, exotic, dangerous creatures. It can be the Mexican border, right? It can be India. It can be Africa. It can be any country which is not white, and preferably Protestant and colonial kind of white. So this is what I want to say about this, because this kind of reaction stood out to me, and it was funny, and I thought it was worth our time to talk about this. But let's move on to the big political thing that is going on now in Israel, and to some extent in the US as well, although on a different pace, because in Israel the sense of urgency is a little different. Americans, and especially American liberals, don't get it yet. They are very slow, dim-witted, maybe, I don't know, probably yes. How liberalism brought us here, both in Israel and in the US. What we are seeing today, okay, the almost completely ripe fascism that we see in both societies. I mean, Israel is in a they are similar and dissimilar, but they are more similar than dissimilar at this point. Maybe one difference is Netanyahu has been in power for almost, 20 years. So Trump is only at the beginning of his second term, so it's the Americans find it easier to delude themselves that things can be different, or are going to be different, or are basically different, because Trump came and he's gonna go in a little while, in a few years. But this is a delusion. Of course it is. It's a very comforting and comfortable delusion, because this is what liberals do to themselves and to general society. And this is part of my point. If you try to define and pinpoint liberal identity, what is a liberal political identity? When I say liberal, it's not only people who call themselves liberals, it's people other people perceive as liberals, okay? It's a kind of soft left-wingers or center, people who are generally for democracy, for openness, for the love, all the gender stuff, the gender issue, And they love the climate. They love talking about the climate and lecturing about the climate and recycling. They love this, okay? They love gender, they love climate, especially Americans. They absolutely love this. But it's not something concrete. I mean, what do you stand for? What do liberals stand for? And when you ask someone about their political identity, what they stand for, the question is, what are you going to fight to the end to win? What is the one thing you will never give up? What is the one thing you will go to world war for? You will risk your own life and you will actually go to war and do whatever is necessary to win. Okay? For instance, when I talk with or about Israeli right-wingers, the messianic types, the settlers you see in all this horrible videos from the West Bank, I know what they stand for. They want to control the West Bank, okay? They want to have a right to oppress Arabs as much as they want and do whatever they want to them because they belong to the superior race, because God told them so. This is what they believe. I know where I stand with them. I know what they stand for. They will fight for this. They will die for this. They will destroy their country and the world for this. And if I talk to a communist, what they will fight for, they will tell me, I'm going to fight for equality. I'm going to fight capitalism to the death. This is, I won't have a world without class equality or something close to it. And I'm never going to give up. And and almost any political identity other than liberal has a set of values or themes or issues they believe in and will fight for and will be transparent and open about, and you'll know where you stand with them. You know what they stand for, but you have no idea what liberals stand for. You have and they themselves don't know what they stand for. They have no idea. I mean, liberal Zionists, I mean, you see them on Twitter, you see them on social media. I mean, you know it as well as I do at this point. Although this group has been like driving me nuts for a decade. Because you can't get these people to say something concrete, something substantial, something that tells of commitment. There's never commitment. There's never standing fully behind something or for something. It's always as if, it's always almost. They always warn about stuff that's going to happen and it's going to destroy society, okay? If Trump is elected, it's going to be very dangerous. And if Trump changes the Supreme Court, it's going to be very, very dangerous. And if Trump appoints this person to this office, it's going to be very dangerous. And if Trump reinstates the draft, it's going to be very dangerous. And you see where I go with this? I can go on until morning. This is the liberal identity. And now, for 20 years at least, 20, 25 years, and this group has existed longer, but it's in its current version, okay? I give it this time frame of around 20 to 25 years. The US was becoming crazier and crazier and more colonial and imperial and violent and fascist, okay? And exceptionalist. Every week, almost, every week, The US went to war in Afghanistan and Iraq and more countries and more countries and Somalia and one country after another, after another, after another, okay? And no resistance was offered. No resistance. During this time frame, this group of people, this liberal camp, started coming up with the two main topics that they I don't know, deified more than anything else, which is gender and climate, which again they are important in themselves, but the way they were put into words and into a political vision, it was so much bullshit. What are you trying to achieve? I mean, this is what you're talking about when your country is destroying the planet, destroying the world, destroying societies, bombing everyone, getting crazier and crazier, more nationalistic. This is what you're doing. It feels so like escapism. What are you talking about? How is this a political agenda, a viable political agenda? No mention of class, no mention of the empire, all the big stuff that actually make up reality as we know it. They never spoke about it. And then they had that Obama moment. And again, it was such a disappointment in an instant. But again, there was no reaction, there was no backlash, and there was Sanders, and you can see that this group of people, this big, and by the way, this is the wealthiest group in the US. This is the group of the rich people with the best real estate, the best education, the best medical treatment, the best whatever, the best therapy, the best everything. They have the most privilege and the most time to actually stand for something politically. I mean, it's this group of people who has the biggest responsibility to make society function and to make the political system mean something, because they have the time, they have the resources. But what have they done with all the time and resources? What have they done? And very similar thing happened in Israel. This same demographic in Israel, the liberal Zionists, for years and years and years, during, again, the same time, more or less, since the beginning of the millennium and onward, they started talking less and less about the occupation. They became depoliticized, and they depoliticized the entire society. Because again, in Israel, as in the US, this is the group with the most money, the most time. They set trends, okay? And when they become depoliticized, when they depoliticize existence, and when they have this belief that we don't need politics, we don't need political convictions, there's nothing we're going to fight for, seriously, ever. All society gets corrupted by this. Because people get their worldview from the upper classes. This is what you aspire to imitate. And so all of society became depoliticized. I mean, the entire West, you cannot find a political party that actually stands for something. Not in the UK, maybe in France and maybe in Spain a little bit, and those are the only places where you have some pro-Palestinian action or speech of any substance. Anywhere else in the US, in the UK, in the stupid Canada and Australia, and what are those countries? I can get it. But you see, there's no political meaning to everything. Those societies became consumerist societies totally. This is the only consciousness you have. I mean, when I was in Israel, I used to call this group of people, the liberals, the class of people with a Netflix subscription. Because to me, this was their most defining characteristic. This was their world. They derived their entire identity from American mainstream media, from idiotic TV series. I haven't watched TV in like 20 years. I can't stand it. Since The Sopranos, which I admire, it's almost religiously. Maybe I watched one or two TV series since then. I can't stand it. It is so obvious to me that it's trying to drink my soul and drain my brain from any meaningful content. I can't stand it. I don't know. But this group of people, this is their life. Netflix and the music streaming and the band or the TikTok trend, instead of having a political identity, instead of standing for something, this is all we have. A consumerist-based identity. They have become depoliticized. And because they have become, they depoliticized themselves while working in collaboration with the capitalists, okay? And they were the capitalists, they were the richest people, they are the richest class of people, the liberals in the US and in Israel. They started believing in all these bullshit agendas and fantastical nonsense, okay, about climate and gender, which is no substitute for class consciousness and anti-racist policies and inequality and peace activism. It can complement all of that. It can't be a substitute. It can't. It's a mockery of a political agenda, as we are now seeing. This is where we got. And again and again and again, in Israel as in the US, there were so many like points in time that group of people, which is so influential and so powerful and so rich and has so much influence, there were so many points where they could say, we don't go along with this anymore. We don't go along with this anymore. Because we could see what was coming. We could see what was coming. Instead of saying we are not going to join the IDF anymore, and unless Israel has a plan to stop the occupation, they continued and continue joining, always, to this day, to this day. They don't refuse, they don't say no, and this is the core of the liberal personality type. They never break with the system. They never break with the system. They never say no. They never say no. For 20 years, they told us that the gender, they always, and misgendering and gender, always talking about gender. And Trump came back into office, and the official policy changed to we only have 2 genders. Did anyone quit their job in American public service? Did anyone say this is so anti everything that I stand for that I can't be part of this system anymore? Do you have one name, one person? When now Trump is breaking American higher education, the fascists are breaking, the Zionists and fascists and racists are breaking US higher education. Have you seen anyone quit the system? How many people quit the American military over its participation in the genocide? Maybe 2 or 3? How many people quit any position? And they are all liberals. The vast majority of them vote Democrat. And it's the same thing in Israel. It's the exact same thing. They never quit. They never break with the system. They only always say, if you do this, it's going to be dangerous. If you do this step, if you appoint this person, if you fire that person, it's going to be dangerous. But it is never now the time to act with them. Never. Never. And now AOC and Sanders are rallying people around what? Around what? Fascism is already here. You need to go on a strike. Complete strike. You need to stop life. If you are against fascism, if you are against genocide, if you are against racism, if you are against discrimination, what are they doing? They are building this Netflix campaign of bullshit and nonsense. Never action, never concrete action, never breaking with the system. The same thing with Israel. The same thing in Israel. The same thing. The occupation got more and more violent and more radical and more messianic and religious and genocidal for years and years and years. And every year they would pass a new legislation, a new law, a new standard, a new expansion of settlements, a new making the legal possibility to shoot Palestinians more and more permissive. Every year, you could see more and more people getting killed, more and more innocent people, over more than a decade, over 20 years. And they saw torture being allowed, and they never quit the system. And now they are demonstrating in Tel Aviv because Netanyahu is sacking the head of Shin Bet, the head of Israel Security Services, the person who oversees all the covert operation Israel is doing to support its genocide and occupation. Isn't this crazy? Isn't this crazy? This is what sends them to the streets. But this is meaningless now. The genocide already happened. They participate in it. Every person you see in this image behind me served in the IDF and continues to serve in reserve service. Every one of them. So what does this mean? What does this mean? It means nothing. What does the AOC rallies mean? They mean nothing. This is the liberal identity. This is how liberals brought us here. Because they depoliticized themselves as a class, and they depoliticized society. And they collaborated with the capitalists to create a society only focused around brands and having this kind of identity. What are you wearing? What are you listening to? What are you... All this bullshit nonsense. Never an actual political stance. Never. And they never seriously resisted anything. They never resisted anything seriously. Never, 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 never. And it is such a difference from American leftists of past generations. When people actually said no and were sitting in places and putting themselves in harm's way to stop actual evil, to stop segregation, to stop the Vietnam War, to do actual stuff, like Rosa Parks sat and said, no, I'm not moving. I'm not moving. That's it. So instead of doing that, American students are having these stupid demonstrations inside American higher education institutions. Instead of walking out together, 1 million people, we are not going to study in your schools. And I have I wrote a letter to American students. I'll post a link also in the description. Why are you fighting to be part of the system that is so dedicated to genocide? Why aren't you breaking with this system? The same question I would ask is liberal Zionists in Israel. Why do you continue to serve in the IDF if you are against the occupation? What does it mean that you are against something and you work to promote it? But they can never break with the system. So the right-wingers, the big fanatic fascists know this, know that their supposed opponents are not serious. They will do anything that they're told. They will follow any order. They will never break with the system. Never. Maybe one or two will break. The rest will comply. This is what they're doing to American higher education. All the presidents of all the universities didn't stand up and say, if you touch any one of us, we are all walking out. We're shutting down our universities. This is liberal identity. They never do anything like it. They have no principles. They only have Netflix and Amazon. That's it. They are hollow. They are hollow. There's nothing there. And this demonstration behind me, there's nothing. This is nothing. This is nothing. It means nothing. Netanyahu laughs when he sees that. And now they are threatened. They are not going to. They are going to have a strike. This is bullshit. Netanyahu is going to start another war in a week, and everyone will put on the uniform and go to the front to kill babies. Everyone. And this is how liberals brought us here. They depoliticized society. They created this fantasy world of brands. And this is who you are. This is who we are. This is what we are. What you purchase online, where you live, all this stupid, irrelevant nonsense. This was supposed to replace your political identity and your commitment to morality, to humanity, to your fellow human beings, to justice. This is what they've done to Western societies, and now they are unable to fight for anything. They are unable to stand up to anything. Trump can do whatever he wants. Trump can open a concentration camp in Manhattan. And liberals will be the guards. Two will go home, the rest will stay and work for them. And the same thing in Israel, it's the same story. Liberals never resist. They always say, if you do something more, it's going to be so dangerous. But then you do it, and they stay. And they say, if you do this, it's going to be so dangerous. It's going to be like Germany in 1930s, Germany. And then you do it, and they stay on board. So why should anyone respect them? Why should the fascists fear them or respect them? They are the ones legitimizing the most wicked forms of fascism, because they never resist, and they teach the rest of the society to never really resist. And without resistance, you're going to have only fascism. There's no one to stop them.